Remember that whole series I did on this channel, Would You Rather Hair Loss Edition, where I asked, would you rather have this happen to you, but you never go bald? That you'd never go bald, but this would be the thing you'd have to do. So I looked up today, and apparently there are 17 of those videos. The first one I made was actually go back in February. And as I continued making these, there for a while, people just hated the videos. But towards the second half of me doing them, people started getting really engaged and involved in them. So what I thought would be fun is to go back through all 17 of them and basically share the answers. Overall, were people willing to make that trade in order to keep their hair loss? Okay, and of course this was a psychological test, because while some of my viewers are very, can we say, obsessed about their hair loss or the fear of losing their hair at any age. Some will say, well, if I go bald young, I can't get married and have kids. And others say, I don't want to go bald. Even if on my deathbed, I want to have a full head of hair, you know? So it matters differently to different people, where they're at in life and that sort of thing. So check this out. Here, I just wrote them all down. Here we go. The first one I made was you would never go bald, but you would definitely die at age 60. The general consensus is most people would be willing to die at age 60 if they got to keep a full head of hair. So there's the first one. Next one. You never go bald, but you'd have to only make minimum wage for life. Most people said no to that one. Next one, only attracted to men, but you get to keep our hair. Most people watching my channel actually said yeah, because they said, well, if I was gay and I was attracted to men anyway, it wouldn't be like a curse, because that's the way my brain would think. So actually most of people watching my videos actually said that they would, for a full head of hair, if they're gonna be gay anyway and not be attracted to women, then what would be the loss? That's what most people said. Next, you'd never go bald, but you'd have to live in a city I looked up called Bickmore, West Virginia, in the middle of nowhere. Most people actually said they'd be willing to live in the middle of nowhere if they kept their hair. But where are the girls? Next, would you be willing to never go bald, but then you'd end up fathering an illegitimate child? That's a lot of responsibility that's going to follow you your whole life. Most people admitted no to that. Having a full head of hair wouldn't be worth being thrown into fatherhood, especially, and because in this synopsis of the video I said, and you wouldn't get along with the mother, and you wouldn't be married, you wouldn't stay together. So you'd be a single dad, but with an illegitimate child, and you wouldn't have a relationship with the mother. So most people said no to that. Next is, you'd have a big nose, but you'd never go bald. Most people said they'd take the big nose. Some even argue that I have a big nose. I've heard throughout my life that I have, quote, a nose that sticks out of my face. It doesn't bother me. I like my nose. Next, keep your hair your whole life, but you'd have a low self-esteem. And most people admitted no, they wouldn't want to have a low self-esteem because they feel that the hair loss is causing the low self-esteem. Next, you'd have a full head of hair, but you'd be covered in tattoos, fully covered in tattoos, all on your chest and all in your arms and back. But you'd have a full head of hair. And the whole synopsis says, like, and you couldn't, get laser tattoo. You for the rest of your life, you'd be covered in tattoos. Most people actually said no to that one. They wouldn't take that deal. Next, to be an over-the-road truck driver, meaning that you'd only be home like a couple days a month, and then after that, you'd just be living out on the road. Actually, the general consensus of that one was yes, they'd take that deal, which there's a lot of over-the-road truck drivers who have full heads of hair anyway, right? The next one was you'd have to spend the next year in prison, but you get to keep full head of hair for the rest of your life after you pay your dues. Whatever that meant in prison. Most people said no on that one. Next, this was surprisingly easy. Most people said that they would take the deal of keeping on their hair if it meant they had to be a vegan for the rest of their life, like me. Vegan 5 years and running now. I've actually been kosher for almost 10 now, 9.5, no pork or shellfish. But vegan for the rest of your life, if you get to keep on your hair, most people said yes, because again, vegans don't just eat vegetables and tofu. We also eat fruits, beans, grains, which is rice, oats, wheat, pasta, and nuts and seeds. So most people said, okay, Nick, I'd be like you if I could keep all my hair. I'd be vegan. Next, I asked, would you be willing to become depressed for the rest of your life, but you get to keep your hair? Most people said no to that one. And again, what really kind of motivated that video anyway for me was Anthony Bourdain, full head of hair in his 60s. And obviously he suffered from depression. And it's such a tragic story. And he's a prime example of that, I feel. Next is, you get to keep all your hair, but you'd have to be in an arranged marriage. Like, okay, like starting now, like, okay, your parents found that, now you're gonna marry her. And you don't really know what she's gonna look like, but hey, you don't have to worry about finding a mate because it's already decided for you. Amazingly, most people tended to say yes on that one. They'd settle for an arranged marriage if it meant they got to keep their hair, and it would take care of a lot of the anxieties about hair loss. Next is that you'd instantly fast forward 10 years of your life. You'd remember it, but you wouldn't get to really experience it in real time. And most people say they would not lose 10 years of living their life if it meant they get to keep hair for the rest of their life. Next is, and this was kind of a twist in the series, but you definitely would go bald, but you'd be happy and confident for life. And most people said yes. Most people were able to realize that in the end, what they really want is to be happy and confident. And even if they had to trade their hair for that, like in an Amy Schumer, I Feel Pretty kind of way, they would do it. Lastly, and the most popular in the series, you get to keep all your hair but sell your soul to the devil. And most people said that they would. And I think that's because most of my audience are not Christian. And I recognize that. It's funny, on both of my channels, my other channel is Family Friendly Daddy Blog, I am a Christian guy that attracts an audience of people who are mainly agnostics and atheists. So that's kind of weird to me because I'm like, why? You sure you want to hear what I have to say? Because ultimately whatever I say is secretly drenched in like Christian beliefs. But still, I can't talk people out of watching my videos, even knowing that about me, and it comes up from time to time. But most people said they would sell their soul to the devil for a full head of hair because ultimately the people who said that don't believe there is Satan, devil, God, Jesus, sin, heaven, hell. So like, sure, Nick, your little fairy tale story, Christianity, sure, I'd do that. I'd say yes to this invisible devil that doesn't exist. So that was actually the most popular in the whole series. So there you go. There's the results of, I counted 17, and I guess this would be the 18th video I've made about it. I don't plan to make any more. This is what I intended to be a retired series. But I felt it was important to make this final one to really unpack that. And what was the whole point of me making those videos? Again, my goal was to challenge you, to help you realize that yes, hair loss may even mean a lot to you, but there's certain limits that you would go to keep your hair if you could. Meaning, do you truly value your hair more than anything? No, because on about half of these videos, it's pretty checkered as far as yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So people have their limits. And I think that's important because it helps us put it in perspective. Is hair loss everything as far as affecting our lives? It's not. But what are those limits? What's the breaking point? And whether you enjoyed watching those videos and being involved in them, isn't so important is the fact that we got to experience that together. I think it's important that I challenge my audience. I want to close with this note. I'm fascinated by comedy, like stand-up comedy. I've watched so many documentaries about it. And one of the reoccurring things I hear about stand-up comedy, if you're good at it, it means that you're good at crossing, like going right up to the line and basically crossing that line. The more you cross the line, the funnier you are, but you've got to do it in a way that doesn't offend people too poorly, too badly. But ultimately, you're crossing a line. You're being inappropriate. You're seeing what is the threshold, what can they handle? And I feel that for my videos, I care more about trying to challenge my viewers and even challenge myself. I care more about that than being liked. Because I know that ultimately, hair loss is a hot topic. People are going to show up on this channel either way, and people are going to leave at some point anyway. So I'm like, whoever's along for the ride right now, let's go ahead and do this thing that maybe makes us feel uncomfortable or awkward, or I don't really want to think about this. I just want you to tell me the magical potion that's going to help me not go bald, right? But I think it's very important for us to be challenged, and for me, almost in the same way as a stand-up comedian, to test your limits, to see how much you can possibly handle in all of this. And in the same way, guess what? I have been so challenged by making all of these videos. I myself had to think through the answers of these. If I were in a situation where I was a 20 and nowhere 5, at that point in my mind, would I think, would I be willing to spend a year in jail and take my chances of what might happen, or etc., whatever the 17 scenarios are. So thank you for participating. With that being said, my Would You Rather Hair Loss edition series officially comes to